as Labour suffered a historic loss in the Caerphilly by-election overnight.
Listen now, Cardiff, and listen, Westminster. This is Caerphilly and Wales telling you we want a better deal for every corner of Wales. The big parties need to sit up and take notice. Wales, we are at the dawn of new leadership. We are at the dawn of a new beginning.
Well, after more than a century representing the area, Labour secured less than 4,000 votes compared to Plaid Cymru's 16,000 and Reform UK's 12,000.
So, is this the day that Labour lost Wales?
Well, joining us live from Caerphilly is our political editor, Christopher Hope. Morning to you, Christopher. What do you make of it?
Well, I think Stephen could well be right there. This could be the day when Labour lost Wales. It's only a by-election, and of course these elections can be protest votes about all sorts of other issues that don't involve the narrow area which a member of the Welsh Parliament can look after in Caerphilly. But it is absolutely seismic what is happening here. We're looking forward to the May elections next year in Wales. We're seeing the whole change in the way that you calculate and vote here to a list system from 60 members of the Welsh Parliament to 90, and it'll be simply a list of people. So if any party which can get high in the polls and high in the votes will win a lot of members of that Parliament, and it could well see Reform UK as the biggest party. We're looking here at Plaid Cymru. They got 47% of the votes, doubling theirs. But look at Reform, from 2% 4 years ago to 36% now. Labour collapsing 35% down to 11%. At 11%, they would win 0 members of the Welsh Parliament next May. Again, this is obviously indicative, but doesn't mean it will happen next May, but really, really concerning. You heard there from the victor, Lindsay Whittle. He's 72 years old. A human story there we must reflect on. He's tried 13 times in Westminster and Welsh Parliament elections to be elected. He's won it on his 14th time. That's more than Nigel Farage took to become an MP when he became an MP July last year. And Lindsay Whittle said this is better than scoring the winning try for Wales against New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup. That's big for a Welshman to say that.
Yeah, I mean, how does Reform reflect on this? Because, I mean, inevitably they'll be disappointed they haven't won, but being just 4,000 behind Plaid Cymru is, I mean, clearly a good result, just not quite good enough.
Yeah, so near yet so far, and I was up for the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election in May, and again there were 1,500 short then. We have to reflect on the journey Reform have come on. They, again, worth repeating again, how they're on 2% 4 years ago, now 36%, just short of the winning post, but the same happened in that Scottish parliamentary election vote in Hamilton, Stonehouse and Larkhall. What does it mean? We don't know yet. It could mean that some of the Labour supporters saw the vote collapsing of their party and then voted Plaid Cymru to try and stop Reform winning. Certainly, I was told by Plaid sources that some people were very upset about Reform winning here. They don't like the idea of deporting migrants back to where they came from, and people who've been living here for a while, they'll be sent back too if Reform win. They don't like that. Some voters, I was told by Plaid, were in tears at the prospect of Reform winning. So what it does show us, I think, that Reform are not just against Labour or the Tories, they're against a lot of different parties who don't want them to win, and it makes their challenge greater next May. But I've got to say, look at those numbers there, 36% behind Plaid on 47%. They would do very, very well at those elections, and it's a wake-up call again, I think, for the main parties back in London, and worth reflecting here for Keir Starmer, a complete disaster for him, and he could well lose Wales next May, and that he is facing a crisis if this happens next May.
And Chris, just before we let you go, you're so dedicated, aren't you, that you've actually worked overnight at the by-election on your birthday. Very, very happy birthday to you, Chris.
I have.
We're sending all our very best wishes to you, and I hope you have a lovely birthday. Oh, he's got his birthday badge.
I bought a birthday badge, Ellie. I'll be wearing it later.
Good.
I'll be wearing it later. Yeah, it's my
glorious
birthday.
years, Chris.
Thanks, Steve. I wasn't going to say all I was on air, but thank you. I appreciate that. I'll pay you back one day. Thank you.
Yeah, you will.
Happy birthday. Hope you get some cake later.
Lovely stuff.
Bless him, isn't he good? Standing
Actually,
there in the cold and the dark for us on his
6
birthday.
o'clock on his
isn't
birthday.
Isn't he good?
Yes. Yeah, we shouldn't mention his age.
No.
54. So there you go. All right, let's get some more reaction from former Special Advisor Oscar Reddrop, who's here. Morning, Oscar. I mean, it's no surprise, in a sense, that Labour didn't do as well as they'd wanted in this. But are you surprised at the scale of the defeat for them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all very well and good. By-elections often challenging for the government in power at the time. But there's not doing well, there's losing a seat, and then there's your vote utterly collapsing. And ahead of those elections in May in Wales, if this is a sign of things to come for Keir Starmer, because undoubtedly, that national Westminster picture cut through. Even the Conservative vote can, losing their deposit. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. The unpopularity of Keir Starmer, I think, is the real main story here. And there was a lot. I've really kind of read up on this election ahead of last night, which is good. Bit of homework there.
Very good, Oscar.
Caerphilly's not
Always
my.
good to know you're doing your research.
I haven't been yet. But on the doorstep, Keir Starmer's unpopularity shone through. They couldn't believe, there were traditional Labour voters there that couldn't believe that this is the guy who wanted to take money from pensioners. That was a real Westminster issue that cut down there. And I think, we talk about Keir Starmer and his future and his popularity, that this is an absolute sign of things to come for next May. And then when you go a little bit further than that, if we see results like this across the board, it makes it very, very hard for Keir Starmer to continue, I think. Because, just for people watching this now, the vote has collapsed for the Labour Party.
So it's crumbled like Philly cheese, you might say. But it will spook other Labour MPs, won't it, who are worried about their seat at the next election. Can we talk about reform? Because it's also a big setback for them in terms of they were really hoping to make inroads in Wales, starting here.
Yeah, look, so the narrative of reform with by-elections right up and down the land thus far has just been, success, win, momentum, success. And there probably was going to come a point where that was going to slow and ease a little bit. The challenge moving forward for reform, particularly, and I think this election, this by-election really shone through on this, is that if it becomes it almost could become a stop reform vote. And when the Labour Party, in whichever part of the country it is, are so stinkingly unpopular, then there's a kind of a softer, progressive stop reform tactical vote that I think reform might come into a few issues with. And I think that's partly what happened here. Hugely high turnout, both for reform and that anti-stop reform vote. But look, I think reform will still do very, very well in May. You have to remember as well, Plaid have been going, the routes that they have in that neck of the woods compared to reform, which basically have been going from a standing start here. I know people who dislike reform will jump on the grave of the result last night for them, but it's still an impressive result nonetheless for reform. But of course they would be disappointed not winning.
Just before I let you go, you mentioned the turnout. It was just over 50%, which is pretty high for a by-election.
Very high.
What are we to make it? Does that solidify the result in terms of how we would project it forward? Because it's more like general election territory, isn't it?
Yeah, spot on. I think this is really a sign of high stakes politics at the moment. And again, what is motivating people to get out that door? It's a hugely unpopular Labour government in Westminster, it seems.